In the year 3487, humanity had spread across the stars, finding new worlds to call home and new species to meet. The United Earth Alliance had sent out expeditions far beyond the solar system, charting unknown galaxies and learning about civilizations that had existed long before humans ever discovered space travel. Some of these civilizations were peaceful, while others were caught in endless wars, fighting over resources, ideologies, and survival. But the Galactic War, which had raged for centuries, was a conflict that no one had expected humanity to be part of. There was one rule in the galaxy that every species knew: never let humans fight in the Galactic War. Humans, they said, were unpredictable. And that unpredictability was something the galaxy could not afford. Captain Aiden, a young but seasoned officer, had always been curious about the rules. He had heard the rumors of the Great War and the reason humanity was banned from it. Some said it was because humans fought too aggressively. Others claimed that their unpredictability made them dangerous, but no one had ever told Aiden the real story. At least, not until the day they discovered the weapon. It was an expedition like any other. A routine survey of a distant planet in the Epsilon system. The planet, known as Scifi, was remote and mostly uninhabited. The mission was to map out the planet's surface and check for any signs of life or resources. Aiden's crew, though, had a strange feeling about this mission. Something about Scifi didn't sit right with them. It wasn't just the eerie silence of the planet, or the way the winds whispered through the barren landscape. No, it was the strange patterns in the atmosphere, the odd readings that none of their equipment could explain. Aiden's science officer, Lena, had been the first to notice something unusual. As the team scanned the planet, her instruments began to show anomalies, pulses of energy coming from below the surface. At first, they thought it was a malfunction, but when the scans were repeated, the same strange readings appeared. It wasn't a natural phenomenon, and it wasn't something any human-made technology could cause. After weeks of investigation, Aiden made the decision to send a team down to the planet's surface. They used advanced ground-penetrating tools to dig deep into the crust of Scifi. What they found shocked them beyond belief. Hidden beneath the planet was a structure, an ancient city that had been buried for millennia. The city's architecture was unlike anything Aiden or his crew had ever seen. Its design was sleek and ancient, but keeping it hidden was not going to be easy. The news of the discovery began to leak across the galaxy. Even though the humans had kept the location of the artifact secret, the Zorthar, one of the most powerful species in the galaxy, had a way of finding things. And they were already on their way. Zarnak, a fierce war commander from the Zorthar species, was the first to notice the strange disturbances in the Epsilon system. He had heard rumors of human activity in the area, but he hadn't expected them to discover what they had. As a leader of the Zorthar military, Zarnak knew that the power of the artifact could not fall into human hands. It was too dangerous. But there was more to this than just a fear of human power. Zarnak had a personal stake in this. The Zorthar had fought in the Galactic War for centuries, and they had long feared that humanity might one day tip the scales in their favor. As Zarnak prepared to mobilize his fleet, Aiden's crew realized they were facing an entirely new challenge. The discovery of the artifact had triggered a dangerous game, one where alliances would be tested, and the future of the galaxy itself hung in the balance. Humanity had no choice but to stand their ground, knowing that if they didn't act fast, they would be caught in a war they weren't prepared for. And so, the stage was set for the greatest battle the galaxy had ever known. Aiden and his crew had no idea what was about to unfold, but they knew that one thing was certain: humanity's place in the galaxy would never be the same. The weeks following the discovery of the artifact were filled with tension and uncertainty. Captain Aiden had ordered his crew to keep the news about the weapon buried deep. They continued their mission as if nothing had changed, even as the glow of the artifact seemed to pulse faintly beneath the surface of Scifi. But everyone on Aiden's team could feel it. The weight of what they had uncovered was far more than they had anticipated. Back aboard their ship, the Vanguard, Lena, the science officer, was working tirelessly to study the artifact. She had been the first to detect its strange energy readings, and now was determined to understand it fully. The artifact wasn't just a power source. It was a sophisticated machine. Aiden's eyes narrowed. No, we're not leaving. We need to understand what's happening. Lena's voice cracked with urgency. Aiden, if we don't move, we'll be caught in the blast radius. This thing's power is unlike anything we've ever seen. Before Aiden could respond, a booming noise shook the ship as a blinding flash of light illuminated the entire planet. A shockwave rippled outward from the surface, knocking the Vanguard off course. Aiden gripped the console tightly as the ship was rocked by the force of the blast. The planet seemed to pulse with life, its energy now fully awake. "Captain, we've lost control," the pilot, Ryle, shouted. "The Vanguard is being pulled toward the planet's surface." Aiden's mind raced. They had no choice now. They had to either take control of the artifact or be destroyed by it. He knew what he had to do, but it wasn't going to be easy. "Lena," Aiden said, his voice calm and collected despite the situation. "Can you override the ship's systems and guide us down to the planet's surface? We need to find out what's causing this." Lena hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "I'll do my best." The ship's thrusters roared as it veered toward the planet. The ground was rushing up at them, and Aiden could see the massive energy spike from the artifact in the distance. It was as if the planet itself had become a living, breathing entity, responding to the artifact's power. As the ship neared the surface, Aiden's crew worked quickly to prepare for a landing. They couldn't risk being caught in another explosion, but they also couldn't let the artifact remain in the hands of any other species. They needed to secure it, no matter the cost. When they landed, the ground beneath them was shaking with the force of the artifact's energy. The ship's doors opened to reveal a desolate landscape, a place where the winds howled, and the air smelled of electricity. The artifact's location was not far from them now, and Aiden knew that they had to move quickly before the Zorthar arrived. Lena led the team toward the underground chamber where the artifact was stored. As they approached, Aiden could feel the pulse of energy growing stronger. It was as if the artifact was calling to them, urging them to unlock its true power. But there was a danger in that power, one that could change the galaxy forever. "Aiden, we're close," Lena said, her voice strained. "But I don't know if we can control it. It's too much for any one species to handle." Aiden met her gaze, his expression calm but resolute. "We don't have a choice. If we don't take control, we lose everything." They stepped closer to the artifact, and as they did, the power within the room seemed to intensify. Aiden reached out, his hand trembling slightly as he touched the surface of the artifact. The moment his fingers made contact, the energy surged. It was as if the artifact recognized his presence, acknowledging him as its new master. A low hum filled the room as the energy began to stabilize. The artifact seemed to pulse in response to Aiden's touch, as if it was waiting for him to do something more. It was clear now that it wasn't just a weapon. It was a tool, one that could be shaped by the will of its user. But just as Aiden began to consider how to harness the artifact's power, a loud roar echoed from above. The ground trembled beneath their feet as the Zorthar arrived. "They're here," Ryle, the ship's pilot, shouted over the comms. "Captain, we've got company." Aiden didn't hesitate. He turned to his crew, each of them ready for the fight that was now inevitable. "Get to the ship," he ordered. "We'll take them on head-on." With the Zorthar fleet approaching, they had no time to waste. Aiden knew that they had to hold off the enemy long enough to ensure the artifact's power was fully under their control. If the Zorthar were allowed to take it, the war would shift in their favor, and humanity's place in the galaxy would be lost forever. The crew rushed to their positions, each person ready to face the oncoming storm. As they climbed aboard the Vanguard, Aiden could see the Zorthar fleet forming in the distance, massive warships bristling with weapons, their dark forms blotting out the stars. They were here to claim the artifact, and they wouldn't stop until they had it. "We're not letting them take it," Aiden muttered to himself as he secured his seat at the helm. Not without a fight. The Vanguard shot forward, engines roaring as it soared through space. The Zorthar fleet was closing in, but Aiden wasn't about to give up. With the artifact in their hands, humanity had the power to change the tide of the war, but only if they could keep it. The first Zorthar ship fired its weapons, sending blasts of energy toward the Vanguard. Aiden swerved to the side, narrowly avoiding the blasts as his crew returned fire. "Return fire," he barked. "Target their engines. Don't let them get close." The battle raged as the Vanguard danced between enemy fire, its shields barely holding up under the barrage. Aiden's tactical brilliance and quick reflexes kept them one step ahead, but he knew that they couldn't keep this up forever. The Zorthar were relentless, and their fleet was larger and more heavily armed. But what the Zorthar didn't count on was the strength of human resolve. Lena's voice rang out from the communication panel. "Captain, we've got a reading. The artifact. It's resonating with our energy systems. We can channel its power through the ship's weapons." Aiden's eyes widened in realization. This was it. With the artifact's power, they could turn the tide of the battle and hold their ground long enough to secure their victory. "Do it," Aiden commanded. "Channel the power through the weapons. Let's show them what humanity is capable of." Lena quickly worked her magic, interfacing with the ship's systems to harness the artifact's energy. The Vanguard's weapons hummed to life, charged with the artifact's incredible power. With a single command, Aiden unleashed a devastating burst of energy, obliterating the first wave of Zorthar ships. The Zorthar fleet was caught off guard. They had never seen anything like this before. Human ships, backed by the power of an ancient artifact, fighting back with a strength that no one had expected. "Captain, they're retreating," Ryle shouted. "They didn't expect this." Aiden grinned, feeling a surge of adrenaline. For the first time in the war, it felt like humanity had the upper hand. "We hold our ground," Aiden said, his voice steady. "They won't get the artifact. Not today." The Zorthar fleet began to pull back, their ships no match for the newfound power humanity now wielded. It was clear that the balance of the war had shifted. With the artifact under their control, humanity had proven that they were not only capable of surviving in the galaxy, they were a force to be reckoned with. As the Vanguard flew through the wreckage of the Zorthar fleet, Aiden looked out into the vastness of space, knowing that this was just the beginning. The road ahead would be difficult, but humanity had shown that they could overcome any challenge. With the artifact in their hands, nothing could stop them. In the days following the battleway, the Zorthar, Aiden and his crew had time to breathe, but only for a brief moment. The victory over the Zorthar fleet was a huge achievement, but it came at a cost. The Vanguard was heavily damaged, and while the crew had managed to escape with their lives, the artifact had taken a toll on the ship's systems. Aiden could feel the weight of the decisions they had made pressing down on him. The galaxy was watching, and it wasn't just the Zorthar who were interested in the artifact. Other factions, some less hostile than the Zorthar, but no less dangerous, were beginning to take notice of the power humanity now possessed. Earth Command had already issued orders for Aiden to return to Earth with the artifact, but Aiden knew that doing so would only make them a target. As the Vanguard drifted through space, heading toward the nearest safe station to make repairs, Aiden sat in the quiet command center, lost in thought. His mind kept returning to one question: how would the galaxy react to humanity now? The answer, as Aiden soon learned, was not what he had expected. A few hours after the battle, an encrypted transmission came through, sent directly to the Vanguard. Aiden's hands hovered over the controls before he accepted the message. The screen flickered to life, revealing the face of an alien leader, a tall, humanoid figure with pale skin and glowing blue eyes. Aiden didn't recognize the species, but he knew the importance of the message. It was clear from the figure's stern expression that this was no casual conversation. "I am Counselor Vrax of the Valorians," the alien said in a calm but firm tone. "We have been monitoring your recent actions. The artifact you possess is of great significance to the galaxy, and it is in violation of intergalactic agreements that no one species, especially humans, should hold such power." Aiden leaned forward, his heart pounding. The Valorians were known for their diplomatic influence, but they were also powerful enough to enforce their will. They had a reputation for getting what they wanted, and their words carried weight in the galaxy. "We are aware of the Zorthar attack on your ship," Vrax continued. "But make no mistake, humanity is not welcome in the galactic war. The artifact you have discovered was hidden for a reason. It is not meant for your kind to control." Aiden's jaw tightened. He had known that the galaxy might resist humanity's involvement in the war, but he hadn't expected such an immediate and direct response. He was now more certain than ever that humanity was on the brink of something bigger than anyone had anticipated. "You have no right to dictate what we can or cannot do," Aiden said, his voice steady. "We found the artifact first. It's ours, and we will use it to protect ourselves." Vrax's expression remained unchanged. "You may have found it first, Captain Aiden, but that does not grant you ownership. You are not prepared to wield such power. The galaxy is already divided, and the consequences of your actions could be disastrous." Aiden stood, walking toward the large viewing window in the command center. He watched as distant stars flickered like tiny sparks in the vast, dark expanse. He knew that the Valorians were right in some ways. Humanity was far from ready to take on the weight of the artifact's power. But the alternative was clear. If they didn't act now, they would be crushed under the weight of galactic politics and war. "I'm not asking for permission," Aiden said firmly, turning back to face the screen. "I'm telling you that humanity will be a force in the galaxy, whether you like it or not. We will not stand by while others fight for control. The artifact is ours, and we will use it to defend ourselves. If you have a problem with that, you'll have to deal with us." Vrax's gaze narrowed, but the message ended abruptly, leaving Aiden in the silence of the command center. It was clear that the Valorians were not going to let humanity's newfound power go unchallenged. But Aiden had made his decision. He wasn't going to back down. As the days passed, Aiden and his crew made repairs to the Vanguard, but they knew it was only a matter of time before more ships arrived. The Zorthar weren't the only ones with an interest in the artifact. If the Valorians were already watching them, there were bound to be others. The galaxy's various factions were already preparing for what might come next, and Aiden wasn't sure if humanity was ready for the challenge. One evening, as Aiden sat in the command center, Lena approached him with a concerned look on her face. "Captain, we've received another transmission," she said, handing him a datapad. "This one's from the Arindari." Aiden's eyebrows furrowed. The Arindari were another powerful species, one known for their highly advanced technology and their unpredictable temperaments. Unlike the Valorians, they didn't bother with diplomacy. They simply took what they wanted. "Put it on screen," Aiden said, his voice calm despite the tension rising in the room. The transmission flickered to life, revealing a tall, armored figure with a helmet that covered most of their face. The voice that came through was mechanical, cold, and authoritative. "Humanity's interference in galactic affairs will not be tolerated," the figure said. "You have something that belongs to us. The artifact will be returned, or there will be consequences." Aiden didn't flinch. He had expected the Arindari to respond, but he hadn't expected them to be so blunt about their intentions. "The artifact is not yours," Aiden replied evenly. "We will not give it up. We are prepared to defend it." The figure's response was chilling. "Then prepare for war, Captain. If you think the Zorthar were dangerous, you have no idea what you are about to face." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving Aiden and his crew to stare at the dark screen. The reality of the situation had just hit them all. Humanity was now at the center of a galactic storm. The artifact was not just a powerful weapon. It was a symbol of humanity's resolve and their unwillingness to bow to the will of the galaxy's old powers. As the Vanguard moved deeper into uncharted space, heading toward a safe haven, Aiden knew that the battle for humanity's future was only just beginning. They had shown the galaxy what they were capable of, but the response from the Valorians and the Erindari made one thing clear. No one would let humanity rise without a fight. But Aiden and his crew were ready. The artifact was in their hands, and with it, they had the strength to make their own destiny. The Vanguard moved silently through the darkness of space, its engines humming softly as it made its way toward an ancient station on the edge of known space. Aiden and his crew knew this station would offer some much-needed repairs, but more importantly, it was a safe haven, at least for now. They had no idea how long they had before the next wave of galactic powers came hunting for them, but they couldn't afford to stay in one place for too long. As they approached the station, Aiden stood at the command center, looking out at the distant silhouette of the station. Its faded lights flickered in the distance, a reminder of a time long past when it had been a bustling hub of trade and diplomacy. Now, it was a forgotten relic, a place where few came and fewer left. "We'll need to be careful," Aiden said, his voice low but firm. "The station's old systems won't hold up under pressure, but it's our best bet for repairs. We'll restock and lay low for a while." Lena nodded from her station, her eyes scanning the system for any signs of trouble. "We'll be fine, Captain, but we should expect company soon. The galactic powers won't forget what happened to their fleets. They'll want answers." Aiden didn't need Lena to remind him. The message from the Valorians and the threat from the Erindari were still fresh in his mind. The galaxy was no longer a safe place for humanity. They had the artifact, an object of immense power, and it had already made them a target. As they docked with the station, the crew disembarked to make necessary repairs and prepare for what was to come. The station was eerily quiet, with no sign of life. It had clearly been abandoned for years, but its storage bays were still functional, and Aiden knew they could find what they needed to keep the Vanguard in working order. The station's main control room was dark, the flickering lights casting long shadows over the old terminals. Aiden walked through the room, his footsteps echoing in the silence. The crew spread out, checking systems and scanning for any signs of intruders. Lena and Ryle worked to get the station's fuel systems up and running, while the rest of the team checked the station's communication arrays. Aiden found himself standing alone in the command center, looking out into the vastness of space. It was strange, this feeling of isolation. For all the advancements humanity had made, they were still alone in the galaxy, surrounded by powers far older and stronger. The silence was broken when a soft beep echoed through the room. Lena's voice crackled over the comms. "Captain, we've got a transmission coming in. It's a secure channel." Aiden's eyes narrowed. He had hoped for a brief respite, but the message was clearly urgent. He moved quickly to the console where Lena was stationed. She input a few commands, and the screen flickered to life. A familiar face appeared on the screen. Admiral Torres of Earth Command. His expression was grim, his voice carrying the weight of 1,000 decisions. "Captain Aiden," Admiral Torres said, "we've been monitoring the situation. The artifact you found. It's become more than just a weapon. It's a symbol, and its existence is shaking the very foundations of galactic order. We've received word from multiple factions. The Zorthar are regrouping, the Valorians are threatening retaliation, and now the Erindari are making their move. They all want the artifact, and they're willing to do whatever it takes to get it." Aiden's grip tightened on the console. This was the moment he had feared. Earth Command was making it clear that humanity was now at the center of a galactic storm. The war was no longer just about survival. It was about power and control. "We've been preparing for this," Aiden said, his voice steady. "The Vanguard is ready for whatever comes next." Torres nodded, his face hardening. I'm sending reinforcements to your location. You won't be able to fight this war alone, Captain. But you need to make a decision. The galaxy is already turning against humanity. If you want to survive, you have to choose a side. Aiden took a deep breath, his mind racing. The Valorians wanted to control the artifact. The Erindari wanted to destroy it. The Zorthar were already gathering their forces, preparing for another assault. The galaxy's powers were closing in, and humanity was stuck in the middle. I'm not choosing a side, Aiden said firmly. Humanity will make its own way. We're not bound by old alliances. If the galaxy wants a war, then let it come. But we will fight on our terms. Taurus's gaze hardened. You're playing a dangerous game, Captain, but I respect your resolve. Just remember, you're not alone in this. Earth Command will support you. But you need to be ready. The galaxy won't stop until it has what it wants. The transmission ended, and Aiden stood silently for a moment, the weight of his decision settling over him. Humanity was on the brink of war, and there was no turning back. He had chosen to fight, and now he had to ensure that his crew was ready for the storm that was coming. We need to be ready, Aiden said quietly to Lena, who had been listening in from across the room. The next few days will determine everything. The galaxy is about to learn what humanity can do when it's pushed to its limit. Lena nodded. We're ready, Captain. Whatever happens, we'll stand with you. Aiden looked around at his crew. They were all in this together. Each of them had their own reasons for being here, but in the end, they were all fighting for the same thing: survival. The artifact had already given them a taste of power, but it also made them a target. Aiden knew the coming days would be full of hard choices and difficult battles. The galaxy had underestimated humanity before, but now they would see the true strength of the human spirit. The Vanguard was more than just a ship now. It was a symbol. Humanity's resolve had been tested, and they had passed. But the real fight was just beginning. Aiden wasn't sure what the future held, but one thing was certain. The galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again. The days aboard the Vanguard grew tense as the crew prepared for the worst. The station had been fully restocked, and their repairs were mostly complete, but Aiden knew the real battle was not against the Zorthar, the Erindari, or even the Valorians. It was against the very forces that sought to keep humanity in check. With the artifact in their hands, humanity had crossed a line that no one in the galaxy had expected. The Valorians' warning, the Erindari's threats, and the growing number of hostile ships approaching their position all painted a clear picture. Humanity was no longer just an innocent bystander in galactic affairs. They were now a target. The Vanguard drifted through space, its crew preparing for the storm ahead. Aiden stood at the command center, his gaze focused on the approaching fleet of ships in the distance. They were not alone. Other ships, some allied with Earth Command, were already gathering to support them. But it wasn't just the fleets that worried Aiden. It was the choices ahead. The galaxy had always operated under unspoken rules, and humanity's actions had now shattered those rules. Captain, Lena's voice interrupted his thoughts. We've got incoming. Zorthar ships are entering the system. They're here earlier than we expected. Aiden's fingers tightened around the edge of the console. He had anticipated the Zorthar would return, but this was sooner than they had hoped. The warship was massive, its dark silhouette looming ominously against the backdrop of stars. The Zorthar fleet had arrived, but they weren't alone. This is it, Aiden said, his voice steady but filled with determination. All hands to battle stations. Get the shield generators online and prepare the cannons. Let's show them we're ready to fight. The crew moved quickly, working in synchrony, their faces set with purpose. There was no time for fear. The Zorthar were here, and they would not be easy to fight off. But Aiden knew that they had no choice. This was humanity's moment to prove its strength. The galaxy had underestimated them, and now they would have to face the consequences. Lena sat at her station, her hands moving rapidly across the console. "I'm locking onto their lid ship, Captain. We've got a clear shot." Aiden nodded, his heart beating faster. The Vanguard had powerful weapons, but it wasn't built for long-term combat. They would need to make every shot count. The Zorthar had learned from their last defeat, and this time, they weren't coming in blind. "We can't take them all head-on," Aiden said, his mind racing. "But we don't have to. We'll hit them where it hurts." Lena's fingers danced across her controls, and the Vanguard fired its first volley. Energy blasts streaked toward the lead Zorthar ship, striking its shields. The Zorthar retaliated quickly, their weapons lighting up the void. The Vanguard rocked with the impact, but Aiden's crew held steady. They were not backing down. "Shields at 60%, Ryle reported. "We've taken a hit, but we're holding." The battle had begun, and Aiden could feel the weight of the situation. The Zorthar had been a major threat to humanity, but now they were just one piece of the puzzle. The Valorians were still out there, and the Irindari were waiting for their chance to strike. The galaxy was turning against humanity, and Aiden knew they had no choice but to fight back. "We need to keep moving," Aiden ordered. "Lena, prepare the FTL jump. We'll get out of here before they can trap us." Lena's eyes flicked to the control panel. "We'll need a few more minutes. The Zorthar are jamming our FTL systems." "We don't have that long," Aiden said, his mind working quickly. The Zorthar had trapped them in a deadly game of cat and mouse. If they didn't escape soon, they would be sitting ducks, easy targets for the next wave of attackers. "Take the shot," Aiden barked. Lena didn't hesitate. She fired another round, hitting the Zorthar ship's engines. The enemy ship staggered, its lights flickering as it struggled to maintain control. But it wasn't enough. More Zorthar ships were closing in, and their numbers were growing. Aiden's heart pounded in his chest. This was not just about survival. It was about humanity's future. He couldn't let the galaxy crush their chance to carve out a place for themselves. A sudden beep interrupted his thoughts. Ryle's voice came over the comms. "Captain, we've got a new signal. It's a fleet, but not Zorthar. It's Earth Command. They've arrived early." Aiden's eyes narrowed. Earth Command was supposed to be sending reinforcements, but this was unexpected. Were they here to help, or had they come to stop humanity's rise in the galaxy? A moment later, a fleet of Earth Command warships dropped out of hyperspace, their sleek forms glowing against the dark void. The ships moved quickly into position, creating a blockade between the Vanguard and the Zorthar fleet. "This is Captain Ava Klein of the Manticore," came the voice over the comms. "Captain Aiden, we're here to back you up. We've got your six." Aiden exhaled in relief. Earth Command had kept their word. But even with reinforcements, this battle was far from over. The Zorthar would not back down easily, and the Valorians and Irindari were still waiting for the perfect moment to strike. "Thank you, Captain Klein," Aiden said, his voice calm but determined. "But this fight isn't just about the Zorthar. The galaxy is turning against humanity. We need to show them we're not going to back down." Klein's voice crackled through the comms. "Understood. We're with you, Captain. Earth Command stands with humanity." Aiden looked at his crew, his heart swelling with pride. They were not alone. Earth Command had joined the fight, but the true test was still ahead. The galaxy was on the brink of war, and humanity was caught in the middle. But Aiden was ready. He had made his choice, and he would fight for humanity's future, no matter the cost. "We fight together," Aiden said, his voice carrying the weight of his resolve. "For Earth, for humanity, and for the future we choose." The Vanguard and its new Earth Command allies stood in a tense standoff with the Zorthar fleet, now surrounded on all sides by ships. Aiden watched the display of enemy ships on his screen, each one moving in perfect formation. The Zorthar were preparing for another assault, but the arrival of Earth Command's fleet had shifted the balance. For now, the Zorthar hesitated, uncertain of how to proceed with two strong forces in their way. Captain Klein's voice crackled over the comms. "Aiden, we have them in a corner. We can finish this now, but we need to be careful. The Zorthar are relentless. They won't back down easily. Aiden's mind raced. The situation was critical. They had Earth Command support, but the odds were still stacked against them. The Zorthar were not just a threat in battle. They were a symbol of the galaxy's greater conflict. The war had drawn in every major power, and humanity was at the heart of it all. The artifact was the key, and as long as they possessed it, the galaxy would continue to want it. We can't let them think they can intimidate us, Aiden said, his voice firm. But we don't need to destroy them all. We need to send a message. Humanity won't be pushed around. Lena, monitoring the incoming Zorthar ships, nodded. We're ready to make our move, Captain, but we can't be sure what the Zorthar are planning. They're not just a military force. They've got a way of luring us into traps. Aiden looked at the display and saw that the Zorthar fleet was preparing to advance again. But this time, it wasn't just a rush of firepower. A strange signal had emerged from one of their ships, a communication they had never intercepted before. Lena's eyes narrowed as she studied the signal. Captain, this isn't just a military move. This is a message. Aiden's heart skipped a beat. A message from the Zorthar. Lena shook her head. No, it's from the Valorians. The Valorians, once allies, were now an unpredictable force in the galaxy. Their cold, calculating nature and powerful fleet had made them one of the most dangerous races, and now they were reaching out to the Vanguard and its crew. Aiden couldn't help but wonder what they wanted. Open it, Aiden ordered, his voice steady. The screen flickered to life, and a hologram of a Valorian officer appeared. She was tall, with sharp features and cold eyes that seemed to pierce through the very fabric of space. Aiden's instincts told him this was not a simple communication. This is Commander Valia of the Valorian fleet. The officer's voice rang out, her tone clipped and demanding. You have the artifact, and that will not be allowed to stand. You have two choices: surrender it to us, or prepare for the consequences. The galaxy will not allow humanity to defy the natural order. Aiden felt the weight of her words settle like a heavy stone in his chest. The Valorians had never been ones to make threats lightly. And with the Zorthar on the verge of attacking, he knew that this was no longer just a simple fight. It was a war for humanity's future. We're not giving you the artifact, Aiden said firmly, his gaze unwavering. Humanity's place in the galaxy will not be determined by your rules. We make our own fate. Commander Valia's expression darkened. So be it. You will regret this. The transmission cut off, and Aiden turned to his crew. The threat from the Valorians was clear, but now was not the time to show weakness. Humanity's resolve had already been tested, and now it would be tested again. We'll fight, Aiden said, his voice rising with confidence. But we'll fight smart. The Zorthar, the Valorians, they all think they can control us. We will show them that humanity fights not for survival, but for freedom. Lena and the rest of the crew nodded in agreement. The time for fear was over. They would fight, not just to survive, but to carve out their place in the galaxy. Aiden watched as the Zorthar ships began to move once more. Earth Command's fleet moved into position alongside the Vanguard, their weapons ready. The tension was palpable as both sides prepared for the inevitable clash. But Aiden had a plan, one that relied not just on force, but on the power of human ingenuity. We're not just going to fight them. We're going to outsmart them, Aiden said, his eyes gleaming with determination. Lena, activate the cloak. We're going to take them by surprise. Lena nodded, quickly working her controls. Cloaking in 3, 2, 1. The Vanguard's cloaking system activated, and the ship disappeared from the Zorthar sensors. The crew had practiced this maneuver countless times, but now it was more important than ever. With Earth Command in position and the Valorians watching from afar, Aiden's plan hinged on one moment of precision. For what felt like an eternity, the Vanguard remained hidden, silently drifting among the Zorthar ships. Then, as the enemy fleet passed within range, Aiden gave the order. Now, Lena deactivated the cloak, and the Vanguard emerged from the shadows, unleashing a barrage of firepower at the Zorthar ships. The enemy fleet staggered, caught off guard by the sudden assault. Earth Command's fleet followed suit, launching their own weapons and joining the fight. The Zorthar were thrown into chaos, unable to recover from the surprise attack. Their ships began to fall back, their coordination shattered. The battle raged on, but humanity had proven its point. As the dust of battle settled, Aiden surveyed the damage. The Zorthar had retreated, their forces scattered, and the Valorians had stayed silent for now. Humanity had won this battle, but the war was far from over. "We've shown them that humanity won't be bullied," Aiden said, his voice filled with pride. "But this is just the beginning. We've got a future to build, a future where humanity decides its own fate." Lena smiled, and we're just getting started. The Vanguard sailed on, its crew united in their mission. The galaxy had witnessed humanity's strength, but the real journey was only beginning. The battles ahead would be harder, the enemy stronger, but humanity had found its place in the stars, and it would never back down. The galaxy had underestimated humanity before, but now they would never make that mistake again.